And joining us now is Curtis Ellis, Senior Policy Advisor with America First Policies. Hey, Curtis, great to have you.
It's great to be here. Let me answer your question. What would the show be without Curtis Ellis? It would be dull and boring. That's what it would be.
Exactly. You got to have Curtis Ellis on. Tell us what's going on. Bannon inspired me today because I was a little down in the dumps because, like I told you the other night, we're losing. And stop telling me about fake polls right now. If the election were held today, you and I both know, Curtis, that right now today we would lose in a landslide and lose the Senate with it. The election isn't today, Curtis. It's 4 months from today.
No. The election is not today. By the way, I'm on the street of New York, which is opening up. Started reopening yesterday. Yes.
Really? So can you get a cup of coffee?
Than there has been. You're allowed to buy a cup of coffee. You're allowed to. Actually, what happened is all of the little shops here, all of the food stores, little restaurants have set up tables on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. I guess Mayor de Blasio has given them a pass because they still have outdoor dining but no indoor dining or something like that. So all these places that never had tables on the sidewalk now do. And they've actually cordoned off some of the parking spots and set up tables there. So, I don't know. So don't drive your car into Manhattan. You're going to have a hard time finding a spot because they're all taken up by food tables, by restaurant tables and cafe tables.
But now you can actually sit down and order like an egg sandwich or something outside.
Correct.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
What about the retail establishments like the haberdasheries and, the little clothing stores?
I don't know about those. They're slowly reopening. They're slowly reopening, and slowly some of the less crazy people are coming back out on the street because for so long, what happened when they shut down New York is the only people on the street were the crazy people, and we have a lot of those in New York, but they're usually masked by mobs of normal people going to work and doing things and shopping. Those people were all gone, so the only people left on the street were the nutbags.
Unbelievable.
So, anyway, where were we? Look, I saw that Tim Murtaugh interview on CNN. I heard him on your show just before. I saw that interview on CNN. That was brutal. Oh, my gosh. These people are just unbelievable. These CNN people and these fake news people are just brutal. They're so condescending. That was the thing that got me. It was so unprofessional. Mm-hmm. The anchor, some woman, I don't know her name, it wasn't Poppy Harlow, it wasn't Brianna or something, or Tiffany, I don't know what, they all have these names, but just so condescending, like, you know that I know better than you, and you're just lying to me, and I'm not going to even dignify what you have to say with treating you like a human being. It's just
I don't even know why they bother to go on there. I mean, I went on it for a long time, as you know, but when I went on, there was some semblance of a conversation. Now it's just nonsense. I mean, it's a totally propaganda machine. But look, I mean, here's my thing: if the election were held today, we'd lose, right? But it's not held today; it's held in 4 months. So I want to know what we're going to do between now and November to turn this thing around. And here's what Bannon said: action, action, action. Every day is November 3rd. Get something done big, but then you have to articulate it. Then you have to get it out there. Like, for instance, he signed the monuments thing yesterday. Okay, help us understand why that is so impactful.
Exactly right. You're exactly right, John. John, once again, you are 100% right. I see now why you are the oracle of the deplorable.
Thank you.
Yes, action and explanation. You have to frame it. You have to, all of the actions that you take have to be part of an arch, an overarching message, right? And his message has always been make America great again. His message has been Americanism, not globalism. So everything has to fit into that, and you have to explain it. Tell people what you're going to do it, tell them what you just did, right? Those are the 3 steps of communication. So I signed the monument because we must protect our past. We must protect our legacy. We are proud of our history, warts and all. This is America. And without a history, we don't have a country. He signed the deal, the executive order on the immigration visas, on the work visas, the work permits. I protect American workers. I believe that Americans have first dibs on every job in America. That's the way it is. That's the way it will be in my second term. We are taking action to make sure Americans come first for the jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Because I believe in America. They, and then you have to define the other side. They are pulling down statues because they want to pull down America. They don't believe in America. And Joe Biden is too weak to stop them. He can say whatever he wants, but just take one look at him. You can see that he doesn't have what it takes to stop the crazies that are running his party. So that's the kind of messaging that needs to happen over and over and over. Every time he does something, we are kicking China's spies disguised as journalists out of our country because China has, and then explain why he did it. We have to stand up to China. There is no longer any reason to believe they are working for our best interest. We know quite the opposite. And we're not going to just go along the way it's been for the past 40 years while people like Joe Biden were running the show. And in my next term, we will take even more decisive action to make sure that those jobs come back from China, come to the United States.
Here's what I've done. Here's why I did it. Here's what it does.
Yeah.
So like when Bannon said the campaign doesn't matter, action every day is November 3rd. Well, the campaign does matter because there's the action, and then there's, like you said, okay, you did something, you restricted the visas. Here's what I did. I restricted HB1, HB2, HB3. I restricted all these visas. The reason I restricted them is because we need to get jobs for Americans, and we're going to watch out for American workers before anybody else. That's why I signed it. Here's what it does. It gets us back to work. It gets food on the table. It gets people getting incomes. We're not competing with foreign workers. Wages go up. That's why I did this. That's my vision going forward for the next 4 years, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
But see, that didn't happen. All we got was from the administration, here's what Trump did. And it was like, oh, great, a win, okay? Then the next step is for the campaign to articulate that. That didn't happen.
To amplify it.
And amplify it. And then people like me amplify it. That's how we won in 2016, Curtis. You were there with me. You get this, right?
Right. And Bannon was there. I remember Bannon in the war room saying, we have to weaponize policy. He called all the policy people in. All these, wonky people who'd never worked on a campaign, had no desire to be part of a campaign, which is brutal combat. Look, they call it a campaign because it's like a military campaign. This is war, right? This is war by other means. We must capture and defeat the enemy. We have to lock them in, target them, lock them in, and destroy them. That's a campaign, right? We have to take the territory, state by state, precinct by precinct. We have to capture territory. That's a campaign. Well, anyway, the policy people aren't interested in that. They're interested in white papers and, how do you do this? How do you fix that? What should our policy? Great. Very important. Must have it. Bannon comes in one day and he says, great. Now what I want you to do is weaponize the policy. We need to explain this to people, to the voter, why it's important, why, and sharpen it, get a sharp edge on it so it attacks the other side, right? I'm for American workers, the other guy's for global economy. I'm for America, the other side's for the world. I'm for you, the other guy's for himself, right? I mean, and every single policy thing that comes out of the White House, every executive order, every decision has to be weaponized and then delivered via the campaign in those sharp terms. So sharp contrast. This is what I'm doing. I'm working for you, and the other guy's not.
Exactly. You absolutely nailed it, and that's where the campaign comes in, and that's why I've been on this train today to get people fired up to understand that we can't just go around and talking about fake polls and fake numbers, and nobody will say they're for Trump and all that. Because I tell you what, one of my listeners, Christine, who called in from D.C., and she was spot on. She's like, you look at all these riots, and you look at all these protest all over the country. Richmond, where I am, a whole bunch of them. D.C., where I am, a whole bunch of them. And, they're not afraid to come out and go shoulder to shoulder and have no masks on. But yet then our people don't want to go to rally in Tulsa because they're afraid they're going to get sick, but the other people aren't. And that's who we're fighting. And if you look at the two of them, hey, you're going to lose. She's right.
Well, yeah. There has to be a message of strength coming from our side. Look, the rally was what happened there was a bad news story. There's a bad news story every day. It's a bad story. I think you summed it up pretty well in the earlier hour, where you said three things went on. There was this constant hype about the COVID and the protesters, and I've heard from people, protesters did keep some people out. Some people had a hard time. They were turned away by police. They were turned away by protesters or by the police trying to protect them from the protesters. That was a factor. And I think that was a very good insight you had when you said, announcing that there's 1 million people there. That discouraged. You don't know how many. Was it 100,000? Was it 10,000? 5,000? 1,000? At least 1,000 people said, I'm not going to put up with that kind of crowd. I actually heard from somebody who had bought a ticket to fly out there and reserved a hotel room. And when they heard 1 million people were going to be there, they said, yeah, you know what? I don't want to put up with that crowd. I'll leave. Because, as he said, first come, first serve. 1 million people means, well, there's got to be at least the full capacity of the arena camped out 3 days before. And I'm not going to do that, so I'm not going to go.
Yeah, right? Because you figure if there's also people going, you have no shot of getting inside. You're not going to go 3 days early in a tent. You just want to go day of, and you don't mind spending get there at 1 o'clock, spend five hours. You can deal with that, but you're not going to get there 3 days in advance. So they were promoting the million, which was not 1 million, but they were promoting it, and it scared people off, and it was dumb. My thing is this. Look, you got to be accountable, okay? It was a mistake. Shouldn't have done it. Just say, hey, I made a bad decision.
Mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. You move on.
Yeah, but if you don't admit it, you're going to make it again.
Yeah. You've never seen a political campaign, any candidate ever in my lifetime, ever do rallies like this, one after the other after the other.
Right.
You and I remember the night before election night.
Yeah.
The guy did 10 rallies in 10 different states.
It was unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. And each one came over that hitch. This is the greatest advanced team in political history, at least since the Lincoln-Douglas debates, right?
Right, exactly.
And they made one mistake. Okay, move on.
Yeah,
go on.
Own up to it. Yeah. Move on. But
action,
you're right.
Action.
Action. Tell them what you did. Tell them why you did it, and tell them how it's going to help you going forward. Tie it in, and I think that's what he has to do to be successful.
That's right, and every single one of these actions is part of the Americanism, the new Americanism of Donald J. Trump. The other side, look, they're pulling down these statues because they really don't believe in America. Mm-hmm. They think we are irredeemable. Mm-hmm. America is irredeemably racist and, slave state, a colonist state, something, all this nonsense. We can't be fixed. We have to tear down America and start over and build the socialist paradise from year zero, right? There is no history. It is year zero. This is, like Pol Pot. I mean, there's an element of that going on. I'm not saying everybody that comes out to these protests believes that. I'm talking about the people, the vicious core that are organizing these things and whipping these people up to pull down statues. This is not a bunch of architecture critics that have decided to sit down and have a seminar and decide what statues should be removed and why. Let's determine the aesthetics of these statues and say which ones have to go and which ones shouldn't go, and then take it to the city council and have them taken down. No, this is mob action.
Well, when you have the mobs involved, it's not going to end well. And I think everybody's looking, Curtis, at this Seattle fiasco. And now there might be one of these chops in Washington, D.C. They're calling it the Black White House zone or something. It's, at first it was okay. It's kind of interesting what they were doing. But now, people are dying. They're getting shot. You can't get medics in. They're shaking down businesses there. There's extortion going on. God knows what else is happening. I mean, they just took over city blocks. And I think after 10 days of this, average people in the suburbs are saying, well, wait a minute. What happens if that comes to my subdivision? Like, what am I going to do? The cops are going to
Yeah,
stand
right.
down. Like what? And I'm serious. I've heard people tell me that this week. If they come to my subdivision and just barricaded it off and came into my home and extorted me, and the cops aren't going to come in, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, this is like home invasion on a citywide level.
Exactly,
right?
it's home invasion.
It's home invasion, city invasion.
City invasion. That's right.
And it's a home invasion. It's fun to laugh about it, like chop chop chop. But you can't let this go on. You can't let them
it's got to
get away
stopped.
with it.
It's got to get stopped. And for any of the negative that might come out of it, he's got to get stopped. They've got to get in there and clean this out. We got to get police and law and order back in the streets, because right now it's chaos. And over the weekend in Chicago, Father's Day weekend, 115 people shot. 11 people died, including a 3-year-old. Never got on the news. I guess that doesn't matter. I guess infants that get shot, African American babies, 3 years old, shot in the back of a car, don't make the news anymore.
Well, that's the thing, you see, and this is going back to our message of you've got to articulate what you're doing, why you're doing it, why it's important, and how it's going to be, how it's a harbinger of things to come.
And how it ties into the bigger picture. I'm out of time.
Right.
Curtis Ellis, I got to go. I want to thank Curtis Ellis for being with us, Senior Policy Director, America First Policies.